Well, hello everyone, this is Henry and this is my report from the Partizan 2025 Wargame show. And I say this every time, but it's true. What a corker of a show. And despite the fact that we didn't have blazing sunshine this time, which is sort of traditional, but I kind of feel was just as well, because the hall got really crowded. No surprise, because as Lawrence of the Newark Irregulars told me sometime mid-afternoon, more than 1,370 people had come through the door already. That's fantastic. So I know that that's at least 100 plus more than for the last Partizan show. So it literally keeps getting bigger and better. And in fact, this time, as you'll see, as well as the main George Stephenson Hall, they had an extra marquee out the front. So you actually entered the show via the marquee, went past a few traders and a couple of games, and wow, a new bring and buy stand, and into then the main hall, which, as you'll see, was just teeming with games and traders and people. And it was fantastic. I had a fantastic time. It was just so lovely. I mean, I only go to a couple of shows a year, and the Partizan shows are always marvellous for catching up with people that I haven't seen in ages, including a number of big names in the hobby. People on social media and such like Ken Riley, Yorkshire Gamer, and Alex Sutherland of Storm of Steel, and Big Lee, and it's wonderful. It's great. Didn't have much time to chat with anyone because I kept getting tapped on the shoulder by other people, and also I had to run around taking photos of all the games and then help with the judging, ably assisted by the lovely Guy from Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, and he came with a cohort. I think there was about 4 or 5 of them in all, so I felt a bit overwhelmed by the Wargame Soldiers and Strategy-ness of the judging team. But it doesn't matter, it was a really tough job to do the judging, as always, especially tough. And, you know, I'm sure that some people were disappointed, some people were surprised, some people were probably quite cross that we gave prizes to who we gave them to, but all we could do was make the best decision we could on the day, and I hope that at least the majority of you will agree with our decisions. Anyway, so I'm not going to say any more at the moment, other than that was brilliant. Please enjoy the show, and I actually pop up a bit later as well, because there was one game there in particular that was kind of stood outside all the other categories. We couldn't really judge it, but I thought it was so beautiful that I wanted to say something about it. So watch out for later in this video. I do a special report, a special bit about Bill Gaskin's game. And anyway, enjoy the video. Thanks. said at the top of this video, I wanted to say something extra about one game in particular, which kind of stood outside all the categories for judging. I mean, you could have just walked straight up to it and given it a prize because it looked so beautiful, but it didn't really fall into any of the judging categories, which is sort of a bit of a shame, but maybe inevitable, because this was the game staged by the wonderful Bill Gaskin and his lovely wife Judy, and it was an 18th century game in 30mm size scale, depending on how you want to call it, 1/56th I think, and it was on beautifully sculpted terrain with beautiful buildings, with beautifully, uniquely sculpted miniatures, beautifully painted, beautifully staged, and it was just took my breath away, visually took my breath away. And I'm sure that was true for quite a lot of people who came to the show. The only thing is, it was really kind of just a static display game, almost a diorama, if you like. And so it had all the appearances of a war game, but wasn't being played as a war game. It was sat there beautifully in the middle of the show, in amongst all the demo games. Looked stunning, but couldn't really be included in the judging categories. And I thought, well, obviously it's a shame, but it's only fair that, the categories get judged and the prizes get given for what they are. But I did want to linger a little bit longer on this stunning looking piece by Bill Gaskin. He was helped in painting some of the figures and what have you by just a couple of people, but largely his own efforts. And it's just beautiful. And those of us who are longer in the tooth and over the years have seen the kind of games that Bill Gaskin has staged at shows like Partizan and Salute will know what I'm talking about and will instantly recognise the almost kind of visual signature that this game had. I showed just a couple of frames of it in amongst all the other stuff building up to this point in my video, but I just wanted to, as I say, spend a couple of minutes more showing you some more views of this absolutely staggeringly beautiful game from Mr. Bill Gaskin. I hope that you enjoy it.